Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at the new Mortal Kombat 11. I'll go ahead and be upfront, I'm not a huge fighting game guy. The only fighting games I ever got into are Smash Bros. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and Mortal Kombat 9. With Mortal Kombat 9 I put more hours into than any other fighting game I've ever played, so I'd consider myself very familiar with the series. I didn't care much for Mortal Kombat 10. However, I'm happy to say Mortal Kombat 11 is a little bit closer to 9 than it is 10, though it is still slower than both those games mechanically, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's due to this slow pace that it opens itself up to a lot more innovation. I really enjoy the crushing blow mechanic. I really like what they've done with the fatal blow mechanic instead of just having an X-ray tied to meter. I think all of it works a lot better, far more intuitive, and leads to a lot more fun matches. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with the story. No one really plays fighting games for the story, but Mortal Kombat's always had an interesting one in my perspective. This one's a big step back. The story is a convoluted mess in my opinion. None of the decisions by any of the characters really make any sense, and sometimes the story just feels like a Power Rangers episode. By that I mean they'll have the bad guy, the good guy, they'll square off, be like, Kano, I'm about to rip your spine out of your urethra and then fuck your asshole with it, and then you beat Kano in the fight. And then you just walk away, you're like, I hope you've learned your lesson now, Kano, don't let me catch you being evil again. And then he comes back being evil, and then you do the same fucking thing again and walk away. Same thing goes for the villains. As a villain, you know, I'm about to fuck your asshole and then pull your spine out of my asshole, Johnny Cage. Then you beat Johnny Cage. I hope you've learned your lesson now, Johnny Cage, I'm evil. And then they walk away. They don't finish the job for no reason half the time. Like, the story could have ended in Chapter 3. You not only beat Kung Lao and Liu Kang, the evil versions of them, you just let them walk. You just get the fuck out of there for no reason. It makes no sense. It's just bad plot armor. And also the writing's really bad. All the attempts at humor do not land at all. It's not like self-aware attempts at humor. It's just bad writing, honestly. It is very pretty to look at. I think there's some good cutscenes in here with some really cool choreography. And there is some deaths, like, you know, halfway through the game, the tone shifts from being, I'm going to let you go with a warning, you know, your 7th warning in a row. It goes from that to putting a bullet right through the skull of Kano. So it does change its tone, which is good. I think it's much better in the later half of the story. And I'm critiquing this story really hard when no one gives a fuck about it, but the story just got under my skin because it was a big disappointment. I love Mortal Kombat 9's story and shit like that, and it was a big step back there. Moving on to the part people actually care about is the gameplay. The combos have never been better. I also like the roster a lot. I really like how a lot of the combos tie into each other and the way you're able to use the offensive 2-bar meter and defensive 2-bar meter as opposed to just 1 meter for everything. I like the way they've divided it up. I think it's a very clever use of the meter, and it makes it a lot more strategic. That's a word I use a lot in this game because it's far more strategic game than previous Mortal Kombats, in my opinion. The slower pacing makes it have to be more about tactics as opposed to, you know, out-comboing somebody. It's all about timing. You know, when are you going to use your breakaway from getting out of a combo starter? When are you going to use a flawless block and then punish? There's a whole lot of depth to the game. A ton of fucking depth, and the tutorial in this game is insane. The tutorial covers frame data, for God's sakes. I've never seen a tutorial as in-depth as this game has to offer. It's totally optional. It doesn't force you to go there. It doesn't hold your hand and take you for the lollipop or anything like that. It just gives you the option of learning everything you can about Mortal Kombat, how the gameplay is done, advanced combos, combo starters, even individual character training. There's a whole lot of shit in the tutorial, and it is incredibly well done. The online is also smooth for the most part. I see a lot of praise with the netcode. However, I have experienced laggy matches. Not overly often. It's not enough to make me, you know, flip a fucking table and pee my pants, but it's enough to be a little bit frustrating, and I imagine that's just because it's launch day. The biggest complaint that I have, the story I complained about a lot, but that's really not a big part of Mortal Kombat. That's not a huge deal to me. What is a big deal to me is the overly greedy and borderline criminal microtransaction system this game has. The monetization in this game makes EA look like saints in comparison. So there's towers in the game, the challenge towers, and you actually can't complete some of those challenge towers without grinding for loot box item consumable shit to beat some of the challenges. They're downright unfair, anti-fun challenges to begin with, but not only that, they are actually impossible to beat unless you have perfect RNG and some loot boxes and get some of the consumable shit that you have to grind hundreds of hours for. Someone did the math. If you wanted to buy all of the skins in the game with to skip the grinding, it would cost you $6,440 to buy all of the unlockable skins without the grinding. That is absolutely absurd because the grinding is awful. Absolutely awful. This monetization in this game nearly ruins the entire game for me. This takes a big fat fucking shit in the cereal bowl for me. This is the most greedy microtransaction system I've ever seen, blowing Star Wars Battlefront 2 out of the water and anything else I can even think of. It's so goddamn disgusting it makes me want to puke. It should be illegal, the monetization method that Mortal Kombat 11 uses. Absolutely criminal. That's the biggest complaint, and it's a big fucking complaint, and I wish reviewers would take this into consideration when reviewing a game, a system like this being in place, because it actually halts your progress in the challenge tower at points. And if you do care about cosmetics, you're going to have to grind for thousands of hours to get all of the skins, actual thousands of hours, or spend thousands of dollars to buy the skins. The challenge tower is just genuinely unfair if you're trying to do it without using, too many rare consumables. And you can't do half of them unless you have those extremely rare god consumables that you have to grind hundreds of hours for and just pray that you get good RNG from your loot box for the perfect consumable to use against the stage. It is so anti-fun, I can't recommend ever going into that for any reason whatsoever. It is just so brutally, it's not challenging, brutally unfair to force your hand into grinding to extend the game's lifespan and kind of tilt you more towards buying microtransactions to kind of help along. Even though microtransactions still rely on RNG in this game, so you still can't even pay for what you want. And that's mainly just for skins and shit anyway. You can't buy loot boxes, but it still makes you want to do that instead of grinding for the skins and shit the right way, because it is so unbelievably, unforgivingly, and unapologetically unfun. It's just so fucking not fun and so long, it's an insult. You lose no matter what. You lose just by buying the game at that point. It's so unbelievably silly and upsetting to see. It really is. That's my only complaint, because everything else about the game, aside from the story, which isn't a big component, I just really wanted to vent about it because it made me upset. I'm playing the game on the PC, and on the one-on-one, like in ranked, the connection was fine for the most part, but when I tried to do King of the Hill, it was constantly laggy, like beyond words laggy. It makes Nintendo Online look like a useful and well worth its service. It was incredibly disgracefully laggy. There was crashes. The game would hang up and I'd have to force quit it. I don't know if that's universal to all platforms, but on PC, I experienced that every time I tried King of the Hill. But in ranked and just one-on-one, it was fine. The roster in this game, I think it's 22 deep if I'm remembering correctly. All the characters are pretty fun to play. I don't like playing Aaron Black, but he's like the only one I genuinely don't have any fun playing. All the other ones are a lot of fun with a lot of fun little combos. I don't know the bread and butters for all of them right off the bat. I haven't put too much time into the combos yet, but the ones that I do know and have mastered to a certain degree are really satisfying. Everything else about the game from a gameplay perspective, online, the characters, visually, soundtrack, all of that is top-notch, exactly what you'd expect from another Mortal Kombat game, and a really good Mortal Kombat game at that. It's just, I'm plugging this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Mortal Kombat 11 a 70%. Keep in mind, this would be somewhere in the 85% or higher range because I really like the gameplay so much, and I just keep frothing at the mouth to get back in the training and learn more combos with more characters. But I just can't help but be unbelievably upset with what the game is from a monetization and a greedy standpoint. You really see where NetherRealm's priorities lied. They wanted to make this a game that they could milk the fuck out of consumers, try and corner them into buying loot boxes to skip grinding, and it's a shame. It's an absolute shame, and I think they deserve a lot of backlash for it, and they're getting it. It's just, this is such a good game too. Such an incredibly good game. But you shouldn't have to pay $6,400 to get all of what the game already has in it. It's just silly. It's unbelievably silly. That's it. So yeah.